So I want to bring in former Obama campaign field director Robin Biro. Robin, good morning.
Good morning, Cheryl.
You know, I mean, you've got to say this has been historic. He is the first sitting president to meet with a North Korean leader / dictator. You know, do you think that that's actually going to be political points in the midterms? We had a guest say earlier that it would be, but also will Democrats at least acknowledge the change in tone and rhetoric that we now have with the North Koreans?
Yes, I think that this does give the Trump campaign levity going into the midterms. But as the former guests pointed out, you know, it's a little soon to tell. You know, not getting out the pom-poms just yet. There's a lot of moving pieces to this. But I do think that he scored some points here. And it's not just that. Like, this is good for all Americans. This is good internationally. We just need to hold Kim Jong-un to his word now. As you pointed out earlier, in the early 2000s, you know, his word wasn't good for much. So we just have to track this and make sure that he's not going to be making some kind of back channel deal with China, for example, to squirrel away some of these weapons or the weapons manufacturing. But no, I do think this is good for Donald Trump.
I would hope the Chinese would not do that at this point, considering how tenuous our talks are with them right now. But to your point about, you know, we talked about the six-party talks between 2003 and 2005. Those, you know, we all came together. It fell apart because of the North Koreans. Same thing happened between 2007 and 2009, although that was Kim Jong-un's father. That was not him. Now a lot is being made. We're seeing this on other networks about this 13-second handshake that happened between them, that this was you know, how dare the president of the United States shake a dictator's hand. I'm sorry, do we not remember just 2 years ago President Obama shaking the hand of Raul Castro, another dictator? Right. It's not like Cuba is the land of freedom and prosperity. It's the opposite. So, I mean, is this where we're going to go after today, after history, especially with the Democrats? Are they going to point to that and erase all the rest of what we've seen?
I'm afraid of that. You know, I'm afraid because a lot is being said about that he's cozying up to dictators and authoritarians and putting tariffs on our allies. I understand that, but this is still history being made. He did take a different approach. I understand why we didn't even speak to Kim Jong-un, because his word wasn't good for much. But let's hope for the best here, because this is best for not only all Americans but internationally. So, you know, kudos to President Donald Trump for trying a different approach.
Yeah, I mean, that approach certainly is going to, we think, lead to months of talks. And, you know, the fact that you've got the North Koreans, at least for now, from what Fox has now confirmed in that document, that they will denuclearize. They've committed to that. A commitment and, of course, following through is a different story. Where do you see this playing out in your mind? I know you've followed a lot of these events in the past from your perspective.
Yeah, it's going to be really tricky to see. You know, Mike Pompeo was masterful at how he negotiated some of this, as was Nikki Haley. They've both been doing a really solid job. Now, Pompeo said that as part of this, they should go ahead and start sending over their nuclear weapons now for denuclearization, which they have not done. I think that's kind of telling as we're heading into this to see where some of this might be headed, because it can't just be empty promises. You know, we expect for Pompeo and Secretary Haley to keep them accountable to their word. And that's what's important in this, Cheryl.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up Secretary Pompeo. You know, he's been Secretary of State for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, and this is what he has accomplished. Right. I mean, the back-channel discussions that he had with the North Koreans all ahead of this, and the fact that it was only a 38 meeting, I think, between two men with translators, even though it was face-to-face, that's very telling that so much of this was likely baked in as the president arrived there in Singapore and started these negotiations.
Yes, he was set up for success, and we're glad about that. I'm glad that Pompeo is there. I'm glad that Secretary Haley's there. They're doing a fantastic job. South Carolina was my home state, so she's even across party lines, she's near and dear to me, and she's doing a fantastic job.
You know, we spoke with a guest earlier that had seen the text of the document, and he said flat out that there was nothing in there about ending the Korean War. And he was a little bit skeptical of the language, saying that it was kind of, yes, I don't want to use the word fluffy, but I can't think of another word right now at 3:50 in the morning, saying that the language really wasn't concrete enough. And what he wanted to see, because he had been through these summits before, he wanted to see something a little more specific from the North Koreans. Does that concern you?
It does. That is concerning, and justifiably. We all expected something a little more concrete, which I agree with the prior guest when he said, "Let's not get out the pom-poms here." Yeah. But still, let's be hopeful, because this would benefit not only all Americans but the entire world.
Oh, the world is watching all of this, Robin. It has been fascinating, and thank you for being a part of it and our coverage this morning, Robin Biro. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.